Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into one of Britain's most notorious criminal cases, the hunt for the Yorkshire Ripper. But this isn't just a story about a serial killer. It's about an investigation so deeply flawed that it allowed him to slip through their fingers for 5 terrifying years, even after police interviewed him 9 separate times. This taunting message, sent right to the police, became a symbol of their very public and very frustrating failure. It was part of one of the biggest manhunts in British history. But as we're about to see, this message was also a devastating red herring that would end up costing lives. Imagine this. For 5 whole years, from 1975 to 1980, the man the press nicknamed the Yorkshire Ripper held the north of England in a grip of absolute fear. His attacks left communities completely shattered, and a police force that was just baffled and struggling for any kind of answer. This timeline really shows you how things escalated. It all started back in '75 with the murder of Wilma McCann. Then, a couple of years later, the murder of a young woman who wasn't a sex worker sent a new wave of panic through the public. And then, in 1979, a hoax audio tape completely threw the investigation off a cliff. The terror wouldn't actually stop until a simple traffic stop in 1981. The final number was just staggering: 13 women murdered. But even that number doesn't tell the whole story. Peter Sutcliffe was also convicted of trying to murder 7 other women, survivors who had to carry the trauma of his attacks for the rest of their lives. So what you're seeing here is a really crucial shift in the killer's pattern. At first, Sutcliffe went after prostitutes, claiming he was on some mission from God, and this created a really dangerous unspoken idea that maybe only certain women were at risk. But the murder of Jane MacDonald, a shop assistant, shattered that illusion. All of a sudden, his victims were from every walk of life, and basically no woman in the north of England felt safe. Now, the search for the Ripper was one of the largest in British history. We're talking thousands of officers. And yet, from the very beginning, the whole investigation was crippled by its own systemic failures. Just try to wrap your head around this number for a second. 11,000. That's how many interviews the police conducted after just the first murder. It really shows you the absolute mountain of data they were trying to manage in a world before computers. And get this, every single clue was stored on a handwritten index card. The system just completely collapsed under the sheer weight of all the paperwork. Critical connections were totally lost in the shuffle. But the most shocking failure of all, police interviewed the actual killer, Peter Sutcliffe, a staggering 9 times and let him go every single time. Okay, so let's look at one of the biggest missed opportunities of the entire case. It all revolved around a single, brand new 5-pound note that was found in the handbag of one of the victims, Jean Jordan. The police were here at first was actually pretty brilliant. They traced that note to the wage packets of about 8,000 employees. They interviewed 5,000 of them, and that included Peter Sutcliffe. But his alibi, just a simple family party, seemed believable. So he was dismissed. And eventually, the police got so frustrated they just abandoned that entire line of inquiry. After they let him go, Sutcliffe murdered at least 5 more women. So just as the investigation was basically drowning in paperwork and missed clues, it got sent down a completely wrong path by a hoaxer who became known as Wearside Jack. This right here is from that infamous audio tape. It was sent directly to the head of the investigation, George Oldfield. The hoaxer taunted Oldfield by name, claiming he was the killer, and he did it in a really distinctive accent that would send the entire manhunt in the wrong direction for years. There was a huge red flag right away: the accent. The guy on the tape was from Wearside, which is near Sunderland. Peter Sutcliffe was a local Yorkshireman. This difference should have been a major clue, but an absolutely devastating coincidence made the police believe the hoax was the real deal. So what was the connection? It was biological. Saliva on the envelopes the hoaxer sent revealed he had blood type B, and, in a staggering coincidence, this was the exact same rare blood type the real killer had left at crime scenes, a type found in just 6% of the entire population. For the police, that sealed it. The tape had to be genuine. The consequences of this were just catastrophic. The whole hunt became obsessed with finding a man with a Wearside accent. Sutcliffe was even questioned again during this period, but was immediately dismissed because his voice didn't match the take. Police even ignored warnings from FBI profilers who said it was probably a hoax.
And while they were chasing this phantom, Peter Sutcliffe was free to murder 3 more women.
So after 5 years, thousands of officers, and millions of pounds spent, the hunt didn't end with some brilliant detective breakthrough. Nope. It ended with a stroke of pure luck during a routine traffic stop. On January 2nd, 1981, police in Sheffield stopped Sutcliffe's car simply because it had false number plates. He asked to go to the bathroom and quickly hid a hammer and a knife. He was arrested for that minor offense, but then an officer, just acting on a hunch, went back to the scene and found the weapons. And that was it. Once he was confronted with the weapons, it was all over. Peter Sutcliffe calmly confessed to being the killer they'd been hunting for 5 long years. One of the most expensive and frustrating manhunts in British history came to a quiet, sudden end.
But the end of the manhunt was really the beginning of a painful reckoning for British police. The sheer scale of the failure demanded answers, and, in the end, it demanded revolutionary change.
This comment from the chief prosecutor says it all. It revealed this deeply troubling attitude that many people felt had plagued the investigation from the very start. This idea of creating a distinction between innocent victims and prostitutes. Critics argued this mindset led to a fatally slow and less urgent response in the investigation's early years. The public outcry led to a scathing official inquiry that became known as the Byford Report. It was a formal government review that just laid bare every single mistake, confirming that the fierce criticism of the police was valid and detailing every systemic failure that let Sutcliffe get away with it for so long. And that report's findings? They sparked a revolution in British policing. The failed index card system was replaced with a national computer database called Holmes. To prevent that kind of information overload, they created brand new procedures for major incidents. And to fight the kind of tunnel vision that got them fixated on the hoax tape, training was completely overhauled.
The legacy of this whole investigation is, yes, a modern police force, one that's better equipped to handle major crimes, but that legacy was forged from 5 years of terror, 7 survivors left with lifelong trauma, and 13 women who lost their lives.
The Yorkshire Ripper case is just a chilling cautionary tale. It proves that institutional bias, outdated methods, and just plain systemic error can combine to create a perfect storm. A storm of failure that can be every bit as deadly as the killer the system is supposed to catch.